Now, don't let its primitive looks fool you. While it's hardly the first zombie game of the year, this mix of Fallout and XCOM style survival is easily one of the most ambitious. It charges you not simply with surviving in the apocalypse, as ever the zombies cease to be that much of a problem next to the people, but building up and protecting a shelter converted from an old Texas school. You've got a few friends at the start to help with this, and soon gather together some more, including a TV preacher, a psychotic zombie killer, and Doug, a geek under the delusion that having a plan for The Walking Dead will somehow make him king of the survivors. Now, the shelter is Dead State at its best thanks to some great character writing. Highlights including a voice on the radio from The Last DJ, some BBS-style data files that could be collected while exploring, and a big cast of strong, often clashing personalities. They do only tend to show this in bursts though, and it's disappointing that the rest of the time they just stand there repeating the same dialogue rather than reacting as they might otherwise do during the plot sections, a casualty of Dead State's low budget and limited production values, though not a particularly big deal. There's always a real sense of both improving and exploring on your own terms, as while they and other characters will provide objectives and problems to solve, it's always up to you where you go next and what you choose to spend time on. It's not as harsh as it might sound, though it's not afraid to be. If your medic is bitten, for instance, she'll turn in a few days without antibiotics whether you have a spare or not. If morale drops too much due to prolonged starvation or other problems, you'll be removed from charge. It does take quite a while to get to that point though, and the world has no shortage of supplies to go gather while the rest of your team crafts, builds, cleans, and otherwise gets on with the business back home. Strangely, after a while the biggest item management question tends to be less who gets to eat tonight as who gets first dibs on this deodorant. Everyone craves luxuries, even after the end. Between the good bits though, and things can be something of a chore. Scavenging just isn't that interesting, with enemies standing stock still until triggered by sight or sound, and no one having enough action points to really do more than trade a couple of shots in combat. Now, it's turn-based, but there's no real strategy to the combat as a result, nothing like Overwatch or stances or cover. Even Wasteland 2 offered more tactical meat than this, and that was already relatively weak. Still, it's largely saved because the plot does continue out here as well, with more survivors to meet and untrustworthy types and people to talk to, and the need to worry about the big picture always breathing at least a little oomph into the otherwise bland action. Now, when you're in Dead State's rhythm, it really works. I can imagine it being quite a few people's favourite zombie game of the year at least, maybe even all-out RPG, and there's no knocking the ambition behind it. Unfortunately, as soon as that moment fades, the repetition kicks in and the glitches start to become a problem. As much as surviving the post-apocalyptic world would inevitably involve a lot of chores, that's all Dead State often manages to make them feel, with its general lack of danger, the clumsy UI and inventory management, and the laid-back life of everyone else back at the shelter just not contributing to making you feel like you're there and every decision matters as much as it should. But as much as that can kill the mood faster than a crowbar to the back of the head, definitely don't rule it out. Flawed games are often some of the most interesting, and this one is no exception. With a few months more development maybe to smooth off a few of the rough edges and maybe fix up some of the bugs, it's going to be a really strong role-playing game. If you jump into it right now though, definitely do be prepared for the problems as well as the potential.